Welcome to DVIBZ podcast, the first episode. I can't wait to introduce what we've been creating over the last 5 years almost, and it just feels like a magical moment to begin. To my left, to your right, is my good friend D, and I just wanted to introduce D, who many of you know and some of you don't, and hopefully a lot of you will. Danielle was my very first mentor and leadership inspiration in the cannabis industry. And so, and she remains, a very dear guide and friend and someone that I've grown to become, very, very close with, like in a way like family. So I'm just so grateful to be here with you, introducing all of this work that you've been doing for many years and I've been doing for a little less, but a few years myself, and get these people excited and inspired to look at cannabis in a whole new way.
Absolutely. I'm so excited. We've been working towards this for a long time, and all kinds of things have interrupted it and drawn our focus elsewhere, right? But here we are finally. It just feels like such a long time coming. And I'm just so incredibly happy to be here with my friend Nick and with you and talking about my best buddy, Mary Jane.
Perfect. You really just said it there. I love how you use Mary Jane. You were talking about Mary Jane the other day, and she's like a real part of your life. And here's the thing. When I met you, I was not as confident and as I was out with my cannabis consumption and my love of the plants. Mm-hmm. And so you really helped me model the kind of behavior that I love to exhibit now and help other people exhibit. So I'm just really excited to get you to talk about your experience with cannabis and go back as far as you want in the memory bank and just talk about a little bit like why cannabis and why is it important to you?
Wow. That's like a whole long story, but I'll try to give you the crib notes for it. I just feel that it's really important for my whole life. I was introduced to cannabis in 1977. And I'll talk about my sort of state of being at that time in a minute. But really, I just feel that this has always been, for most of my life, quite a taboo subject. And, over the years, I've had to find my way with Mary Jane. I know I anthropomorphize a whole plant, but she is
good use of that word, by the way.
Oh, well, great!
It's a good word.
I can't believe it came out in one shot. But all my life, I just felt a lot of shame and a lot of stigmas and a lot of stereotypes, like many of us do. And so I just feel that now we just hit the 5-year mark of adult use legalization in Canada. And first of all, I never thought I'd live to see that day, and it was incredibly emotionally for me. But, here we are. And the thing about it is cannabis is like us. It's a little complicated. Yeah. So understanding cannabis and our symbiotic relationship with it is key, really. One of the keys to opening up the many benefits of its use.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so a long time ago, like I'm talking before the internet, we had to learn. How did we learn about cannabis, right? There were some books, that's true, mostly focused on growing cannabis, which is very important. And isn't it wonderful we can grow our own medicine? Anyhow.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So the thing about it is that how we learn is we simply learn from trial and error. And if we were very lucky, we were introduced to cannabis by people who were familiar and experts of their own experience to be able to share that with you and some of the common things that we experience with cannabis. But it's tricky.
Yeah.
Because cannabis is so incredibly unique to each individual. So it's a real relationship. you know?
Totally,
and
yeah.
it's different for all of us. It's different at different times. It's different at different stages of our lives. It's different, you know, depending on our needs and desires. So I just feel that it's very important right now with everything that's going on and just life in general. You know, life's a tough gig, right? Life
So
can be
tough.
so hard.
Yeah.
And just to find, you know, your own joy, your own peace of mind, your own, you know, bliss factor is what I like to think of it as.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't think there's a better time than right frickin' now to start talking about cannabis and its therapeutic use. So that's why we're here.
That is why we're here. And, you know, I think that's what this podcast is about. This moment in time where a plant that's been so demonized and stigmatized, and the people that used it have been so beaten down and harassed and killed, and just like the shame that it's like, oh my gosh, like 100 years of wearing like a virtual scarlet letter. And, you know, our beloved plant, she's not quiet. She is loud. So anybody that's puffing on some Mary Jane is about to get some attention, whether that's positive or negative. So I think it's like we stand on the, of course, you know, the shoulders and the ancestral links of people who went through hell to bring this plant to this time in our generation. And it just feels like the doors have been opening for some time. And, you know, we're very blessed to be in Canada, where we have that, you know, that ability to, at least, as bad as the regulations, as horrible as some of the things have been rolled out and unfairly and et cetera, you know, at least we don't have to worry about going to jail or getting harassed by the police just for smoking the joints.
Well, typically that should be true in an ideal world. Of course, you know, anywhere that cannabis is legalized, like it's probably one of the most regulated industries in the world.
Yeah, totally.
Because every time they legalize it, whether that's for medical or adult use, they like treat it like it's like, you know, it's over-regulated.
Yeah,
like it's
the crown jewels, you know, like it's
you
so
know,
secretive.
So there's way more regulation around cannabis than there is even alcohol.
Yeah.
So, you know, that just goes to show you like what a kind of taboo subject it has been. And, you know, the nature of a taboo subject is that you don't even talk about it.
Exactly.
You don't even acknowledge it. And so, you know, that's left us, you know, figuring it out for ourselves. And, you know, that's not to say that healthcare professionals or people that specialize in, you know, the plants from a theoretical perspective, it's not to say that they are not of value and that they don't have really useful information. Okay. I love following the science as it's developed over these, you know, decades. Yeah, for sure. And, you know, that's really important. The more we learn about it, the more information, the more ability we have to maximize its ability to help us, right? But, you know, the truth is, in my opinion, for myself and for almost anybody that I've ever met that's another enthusiast like us, the thing is, it's such a unique experience. And then on top of that, it's super individual. That really the only people that kind of understand a cannabis enthusiast is another cannabis enthusiast. So here we are.
And that's, you know, it brings us, for me, like what this podcast is about is fun. It's I think one of the great joys of being in the cannabis community and being someone who's an enthusiast is that this plant really, and I think it's known universally for its, you know, joyous and jovial effects and impacts on people. And so I feel like this is also what we want to convey. You know, we're going to have fun. We're not just going to talk about, like you said, we're not just going to read scientific studies and reviews. We're going to talk about real people and how cannabis is used and utilized and infused into life, and what it means and what it's always meant for, you know, as long as there's been humans congregating, we have stories of this beautiful plant being part of spiritual services and crafts, and of course hemp and everything like that. So I feel like there's a lightness that we can bring to this, and why now, and why cannabis now also, is that cannabis has the power to bring lightness to some very dark and difficult times as well.
And, you know, that's especially true when, you know, you have to dig deep and go inside and explore that inner landscape, which can be like super scary and feel somewhat overwhelming at times. But cannabis is such an ally and such a friend and such an inspiration and motivation for that. And so, you know, I mean, you know, ultimately for me, you know, the truth is, like, for thousands, like literally thousands of years, millions of people around the world have been self-medicating with cannabis safely and effectively, not even knowing what they're doing. Okay. So the thing about it is that what we find, you know, we all come to cannabis for different reasons, and we utilize cannabis for different reasons. From everything from, like, I don't know, like healing, pain relief, you know, relaxation, personal growth, creative inspiration, spiritual development, all of these things, much, much more than that as well. Like, so cannabis is like an incredibly versatile tool. So that's why, for me, I see it as an ally, because I can utilize it for all kinds of things that help me feel better, be better, live better. So yeah, like, what's not to love?
Yeah, it's a versatile. It's a Swiss Army knife of, you know, of the human, I would say the conscious human path, because, you know, I think there is a difference, of course, between consuming cannabis consciously and unconsciously, and no shade to people that love to get high. I love to get high too. And that's,
Me too.
And that's a fun part of what we're doing. Right. So, and at the same time, I think what I've come to learn, and what, you know, I think you've definitely taught me and others over the last 20 odd years of your work, is that, you know, we have the ability to utilize this plant for all aspects of our lives. And it's not just a fun device. It is actually a deep, you know, spiritual tool that helps us refine who we are, heal wounds from the past and traumas that we've experienced, support us through various projects and creative inspirations and productivity and all these different things that we know it can do. And it just feels like so amazing that now is the time where things are finally starting to open up all over the world in various places.
So thank goodness, you know, because the truth is, like, in my 50 some odd years of life, I have never met anybody who didn't have some healing to do, that didn't experience some trauma of some sort. And much of that happens when we're young and we're in our youth and we don't know how to deal with it. And, you know, we turn to all kinds of things to help us, right?
Yeah.
When I was growing up, I grew up on Vancouver Island, which I'm extremely proud to say is one of the premier growing cultivation areas, provinces in Canada.
Okay, don't rub it in. We get it. We're from Vancouver Island, where all the good weed is from.
And so my introduction to cannabis was through, you know, the growers, right? People that grew cannabis. And they were just people, and they grew it. And because so many people, once they experience it and its benefits, they often, like, they're, you know, they become passionate about it, and they will risk everything to do it.
Yeah. Respect.
And so I'm really grateful that I had that introduction. So yes, of course, you know, I was young and looking, and you know, all kinds of reasons why I turned to cannabis, but I saw other people turning to all kinds of different things for themselves, you know, and like a lot of that was alcohol, because that's the easiest accessible one, you know, and, you know, gambling and even sex and like all kinds of behaviors and addictions that they did help in some ways, but they ended up, the price was too high to pay, right? Because they brought too much baggage with them.
Yeah, the cure was worse than the disease.
Exactly.
Yeah, I feel that.
But when I saw the people smoking weed, you know what? They like to talk, they like to laugh, and they like to eat. And those are three things that I just love to do.
Yes.
So it appealed to me. And it wasn't that their life was, you know, any different. They were still struggling with the same struggles that we all struggle with. or most of us anyways. But they found ways to cope with it in, first of all, ways that didn't hurt anybody else.
Mm.
And that was really important to me.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these things that we turn to, they end up hurting other people as well as ourselves.
Yeah. It's hard to keep addictions and harmful behavior from other people. You know, like a lot of people, through their own best efforts, you know, they don't want to inflict harm on their fans. And, you know, these addictions, they spill over. And, you know, you mentioned a number of them that are common. And I think it's important to talk about some uncommon addictions that people have, like work or, you know, over exercise or
prescription
medicine. You know, everyone pick one, you know, but at the same time, you know, I also want to, you know, I want to do a PSA for addictions here. It's not that they're great. It's just that for me, I feel like they help us understand ourselves. And so one of the great things about cannabis is that it helps me be introspective about the harm that I might be causing myself or others. You know, it causes me to be introspective and to give me myself that place to go to. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you know, Bob Marley said it best, right? When you smoke the herb, it reveals you to yourself. And so this is one of the reasons why cannabis is really a helpful tool for that inner exploration, for that striving for personal growth, to change behaviors or habits that you know, are not bringing you joy in your life, right? And so, you know, I don't know. There's like all kinds of debate about this, all kinds of stuff. But here's the way that I see it. I like to keep things simple. And the way that I see it is, if someone asks me, are you addicted to cannabis? Well, the answer is no, because I've had many times when I've had to set it aside, whether that was, you know, going to work at sea or whether, you know, I was too broke ass to afford any, or whether, you know,
been there. We've all been there.
Or, you know, like I was maybe, you know, had a bad flu, and I don't like to smoke cannabis when I have the flu, when I'm congested, right? Although it might help, I don't know. But it's that, and playing tennis. I never smoke before I play tennis, and I never smoke before I go to the dentist.
I've heard other people say that. Like,
is that right?
Tell me, like, why is it for you that you don't like associate dental health or your dentist trip with your weed?
Well, the thing is that it's my mindset, which, you know, we're totally going to get into like some of these topics in our later episodes. But it's really my mindset, because when I go there, I'm like bracing myself, right? Because this is not an experience that I enjoy. Even if it's not painful per se, it's just an experience that I don't like. The sound of the drilling and stuff. It's you know? And so cannabis, when I'm under the influence of cannabis, things are, for me, are enhanced. And so that's not what I want enhanced. That feeling of or that sound, you know, of drilling or something. No. No.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone has their areas where they're like, I don't feel you know, wanting to mix. For me, I used to never want to mix cannabis and work. So it was very much like I would go to work, and then at the end of the day, my reward would be smoking weed in like the evening time. And so I kind of held that rule for a long time. Until I got into a very fun job, and I won't say the name of the company, but needless to say, we were driving around. This is when I was living in Toronto, and you know, I was like starting as an entrepreneur, and you know, I needed this gig, and so I worked for a non-specific junk removal company that, let's be honest, some of us were smoking weed in the trucks. I mean, I'm sorry, you guys knew, but anyway, we were still safe, and we were doing a good job, and I noticed that you could engage, especially with manual labor. I was like, wow, cannabis actually makes this better. This makes this tolerable. I'm just as sharp and I'm just as aware. And we were just taking like little micro doses. We weren't like going all in, but you're just having a little bit of weed, a couple of pipes or a little toke of a small joint before going to work. And it was like, oh, I feel relaxed. I feel loose. My body feels good, because if I'm working 60-hour weeks, you know, with my body, you know, man, it really helped. And then as soon as I realized that, I was like, wow, there's a lot of people that are getting high at work across the world, because I started to then see how other people utilize cannabis in their day-to-day life. And, you were one of the people that were able, you helped me. I think by the time we had met, I was very much open to it, but like you really fleshed out like a living person who's embodying some of these things. So, I mean, that's
it's like
why
our first business meeting. It's like our first team meeting. It's like the first thing we do is light up.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
And like that cannabis, Mary Jane, she's can be very helpful in so many ways. The key, I know some of you are thinking like, oh my God, I remember last time I got high, I can't even imagine trying to function, let alone like, trying to go to work or talk to people or maybe look after my kids or whatever.
Yeah.
And so that's true for some people and sometimes. But what we're going to talk about in this podcast is how we approach cannabis. Okay, I like to call this canna-therapy. That's all it is how we approach it, right? And I like to think of that as like conscious, mindful and intentional. There's a purpose. There's a purpose to my cannabis use. There's a purpose to your cannabis use.
Definitely.
So it's like, and sometimes that purpose is just to like, feel so good. It feels so good. It feels so fun. And like, that is the thing that I love the most about Mary Jane.
Oh, yes.
Because imagine if you needed all kinds of healing. If you are experiencing pain of some sort, mental, emotional, whatever, physical, and you are turning to cannabis, which for a lot of people, a lot of non-consumers, that is like pure desperation. They're like, it's the last thing that they're going to choose, right? They're going to try like vitamins. They're going to try like all kinds of stuff, right? Yeah. But the thing about it is, cannabis is really versatile. It can be used for almost anything that you need in your life to bring you joy. And cannabis is so powerful. It's really effective. That's why, I don't know how many places in the world, but that's why medical cannabis is almost a given for a lot of places, right?
Yes.
It's because by the time people get there, they give me anything to stop whatever. Give me anything for relief. And so really, I just feel in my own experience, I just feel that the key to unlocking the maximum, like the most of those therapeutic benefits and getting the most benefit of your cannabis use, that's what I call canna-therapy.
Yeah, that's what I call grace. I mean, you put it so it's the systems, it's not just one system that you've been building, but the systems that you and many others have been building with canna-therapy and other conscious approaches to cannabis. Like, of course, people are doing similar things to what we are doing at DVIBZ, but in their own way and all around the world. So I feel like, one of the values that we have is being an expert of your own experience. And so, I think that's a good time to say, like, we and I, for sure, not an expert on anything but what works for me and what I share with people. I'm not always successful, but I do try to present things. And it's my intention that on this show, we present things for people to observe, look at, think about, but aren't required to take on. And if it doesn't work for them, just like, just let it go, like,
and
we're
like,
not attached
take what
to
you
it.
want and leave
100%,
the rest, right?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
And here's the thing. So, all we're doing, this is more than a podcast, really. It's really an invitation to cannabis enthusiasts, whether you're new to the plant, whether you're a seasoned enthusiast, whatever, it doesn't matter, whether you're just curious about it. Our goal for this podcast, I think we collectively agree that really what it's about is sharing our journey with you, encouraging you to talk about your journey in the comments and anybody else.
Yes.
But the thing is that it's really about, you are on your journey, you are on your healing journey, whatever that is. You're gathering, and probably have gathered if you've been doing it for a while, a lot of suggestions and helpful hints and tools. And I'm hoping that this can be a great place to share those things for all those people who are just coming and who will continue to come. maybe there's a certain amount of suffering that is part of life. I don't know. I'm not a philosopher. But the thing is, like, if there's something that helps me avoid unnecessary suffering, I'm all there. I'm all in. I have
Hell
no
yeah.
desire to be a martyr. I have
No.
I just want to
No.
enjoy whatever time I
No.
have on this earth,
Yeah.
and and be my best self. Like, at least, like, work towards that. And I don't know. For me, it's like the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah.
And all I can really say is that for me, I have lived my life, parts of my life without cannabis, and I have lived much of my life with cannabis, and with is better. I'm just saying.
Yeah. I feel like for me, I growing up in Southwestern Ontario in the 80s and the 90s, when it was still very much, everything was super illegal, and not just illegal, but, like demonized. Like, people were like, if you smoke weed, you're going to jump out of a building, you're going to murder your friend. It was very much that
Reefer
that
madness.
reefer madness. It was so much, it was like the just say no, and like
Devil's
all
lettuce.
of it. Yeah. So I grew up and I grew up in a pretty religious family. So they were like, not to please. I remember, sorry, mom, I hate to put you on the spot like this, but the year was 2002, and you said that Canada would never, ever in her lifetime legalize cannabis. And so, no disrespect to my mom, but I'm glad that wasn't true, because at the time when I was growing up, cannabis came to me maybe at an earlier age than I would advise other people. But at the same time, it came to me in a moment where I really needed support, and I needed to feel the presence of spirituality or God or the universe, because I wasn't feeling it through what I was being taught. And so it was like the first time that I tried cannabis, I was like, oh, all of a sudden, like, it was like someone turned the lights on to my spiritual curiosity, and it was like, wow, this is a different type of spirituality, because I can feel it. Like, I can feel the joy. The proof is in the joy, people, not the pudding. The proof is in the joy. If you don't feel
joy pudding,
joyous pudding, yummy, I'll have seconds. But for me, that was where that's where it sparked the joy. Respect to Marie Kondo, spark the joy.
Spark the joy. I love it. Well, I wish I could say that my first experience with cannabis was amazing, but it was actually one of the worst of my life. One of the worst experiences of my life, to be honest.
Damn.
And, I did, what happened to me is what happens often to people. A couple things. Like, first of all, I was also very young in 1977. I'm sure there's lots of mathematicians out there, so I don't really want to say too much. But the thing is, me and four of the girls, and I will say that, we were like under 16. Let's just put it that way. 3 other girls. There was 4 of us. And we didn't really know what we were doing. So the first thing we did was we smoked 5 joints of Acapulco Gold between 4 of us, and we smoked them right after another.
Right, and if you're new to cannabis, that's a lot.
Okay, it's not only a lot, but the thing is that, cannabis needs a little bit of time to get into your system and work. Okay,
right.
So sometimes if you rush yourself, you don't actually know how it's affecting you, because
guilty as charged so many times.
Until it's too late, until you've crossed the line and you're like, oh no. And we have a term for this as consumers. We call this greening out, right? We just like, too much. And, we often laugh about it, just like we're doing here. And that's because we've experienced it, and we understand that it's not a fatal issue. It's going to be fine. All we really need, there's a couple things we can do. We're going to make a video about that, 5 steps to help you not have that experience.
Absolutely.
But anyway, so, I had too much. I went too quickly. Another thing that I did wrong was I mixed it with alcohol. And I'm just going to say
that's what the kids call crossfading.
Crossfading? I totally was crossfading. And here's the thing, I just want to take a moment and just say that over the years, I can't tell you how many people I've met who are now older, who have tried cannabis in their youth, and have, like, you know, had a party with it, but they've maybe had a bad experience or two. So that's one of the first questions I ask them is like, were you consuming alcohol at the same time? Because, you know, they always blame the cannabis. They always blame Mary Jane.
Yeah.
They never blame the alcohol or whatever, you know, they just blame the cannabis. So so that was another thing that I didn't do very well. And honestly, set and setting is such an incredibly part of have safe consumption, right? Set and setting, where you do this, who you do it with, what's going down, right? You know, totally. So set and setting, and I didn't pay any attention. And I probably, knowing what I know today, probably chose one of the worst circumstances to do it in. So with those three things going on, dynamics, I had a very, very bad time. And thank goodness, I made it home okay. Obviously, I'm here, you know. And nothing bad happened to me. So that's really great. And I really credit the young girls I was with. They made sure I got home okay. But most importantly, I'm grateful that it was cannabis. Because if I was going to have a problem with anything, cannabis is like one of the safest things I could ever have a problem with. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So if I'm going to overconsume something, thank goodness it was cannabis.
True that. Yeah, it could have been a lot worse. And, you know, I think I don't know if you want to talk about it, but I remember that you've told me this story before, and that there's a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel of your experience.
Well, you know, a normal person might think, well, Dee, if you had such a bad time with it, then why did you keep doing it? And so I'm going to chalk that up to the resiliency of youth. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why I kept going.
Tell me.
Because before things went sideways and terribly wrong, I remember what they were like before they went wrong. And so what happened was, I remember the moments that cannabis has this amazing ability to expand your consciousness. And the moment that happened, some people refer to it as like your third eye opening, whatever it is, whatever expands your consciousness, that's what happened. And it was amazing. And for the first time in my life, I felt so filled with hope. Like so filled, like maybe life isn't a lost cause. Because you need to understand that I didn't come, like, I've never met anybody that came to cannabis. They just woke up one day and said, oh man, I feel so good. My life is so great. Everything's going fantastic. I'm going to try cannabis today. That's not how it works. Usually, sometimes, you know, we're at a party or something, a circumstance, and like somebody's got a joint, they're passing it around because they're very social. You know, consumption is very social at times. Yeah. And so, you know, you might seem like a good idea at the time kind of thing. But often people, like I said earlier, people come to cannabis out of desperation. They're looking for help.
Yeah.
Okay, help with something.
Yeah.
And so I was very worried at that time. Even though I was very young, I had felt very old in my soul. I felt incredibly tired. You know, that soulful tired?
Yeah.
And
it's heavy.
yeah.
So heavy.
And I was full of fear all the time. And then I was angry because I was full of fear. So to be honest, you know, I grew up in a very impoverished atmosphere. And all the things that go along with that, all kinds of addictions and abuse and you know, mental health issues. And so I already felt very broken. That's how I think of it, as like
Mm,
feeling like just like broken, my spirit, my
mm,
soul, my heart,
mm,
my mind. I was scared like I was crazy or gonna be crazy like all these people around me.
mm-hmm,
and and I had felt very abused. And so I felt very victimized.
mm,
And I was looking for something to help me cope with all this stuff that was going on inside me. And I was just a child. But the thing is that we go through that stuff. Lots of children go through that stuff. Lots of adults go through that stuff. And that feeling of just hopelessness
mm,
and despair. And like, is it ever gonna get any better than this? Is this the best I can hope for?
mm,
You know, am I just simply a
mm,
statistic or a victim of my circumstance?
mm,
And I didn't want that to be true, but
mm,
it seemed like that's was my fate, you
mm,
know, an uneducated Black girl,
mm,
uh, you know.
mm,
So when cannabis expanded my consciousness, and I don't know, I saw what could be, but not like a movie, just like an overall feeling, just being
yeah.
overwhelmed with the feeling of hope of what could be
Mm,
and what I could be. I
mm,
could be anything.
mm,
And
mm,
yeah, you know, I needed help.
mm,
And so I loved that feeling. I'd
mm,
never felt that before.
mm,
And so I continued to approach and experiment with Mary Jane until I could just do that without having any of the bad stuff.
mm-hmm, yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And
It's a dance. I
it's a
find it's a
dance.
dance. My relationship with weed and cannabis and everything. It's a dance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you? What brought you to cannabis?
Well, I mean, at that time, it was like a youthful, like I wanted to be cool.
Mm.
So I wasn't. My family moved around quite a bit, so I had this chip on my shoulder when I would go to a new place, and I thought that the best way to to have friends would be to try and climb to the very top of the social ladder of the new school I went to, and that was like always my strategy. And looking back, I'm like, that wasn't the right. You should just made friends with like people were there, but I wanted to be cool.
Right.
So I was like very. I don't know. I guess there was something probably will, unpack it in therapy one day about why I really wanted to be cool. But I did. I wanted to be cool. So
That's honest.
yeah.
Sure.
And so I remember the cool kid was talking about weed or something, and I made up, and you know what? Again, mom earmuffs. I lied. I told them that I had smoked weed, but I hadn't yet. I hadn't done that yet. So my family will be like, yeah, we know you do that. And I don't do it anymore, but I used to. And so I lied and I told him that I had, and he was like, "No, you haven't. Stop lying. But if you want to try it, like let's get some together and we'll get the group together." So all of a sudden, I was like, and it was like he was like the cool kid, Dale Coulter. Shout out wherever you are. You were a nice guy, and you were a good, the number one cool kid. He was a good leader, but nonetheless, we got weed. I think it was in oil. We did bottle tokes, BTs. For the folks at home, a BT is a really interesting way to smoke cannabis. It involves putting a hole in a bottle, plastic or glass. Not the healthiest, not recommending this. I'm just saying this is what we did. So we burned a hole in the side of a Coke bottle, plastic bottle, and we put little drops of it. We didn't have, see, we were oppressed out east. We didn't have this beautiful cornucopia of like,
You had hash.
we had hash, and we had hash oil. That's it. That's
Okay.
all we got. No flour. There wasn't like pixies going like, here's an ounce of, sunshine, go for it. No, we didn't have that. We had dirty old hash oil and hash sometimes. And you put it on the end of a cigarette, and then the smoke goes in, and eventually the cannabis smoke goes up. So that was my introduction. And that's when I had this epiphany. We went riding our bikes, and that's when I had this epiphany of like, oh, I'm a spiritual being having a human experience or something. So that's what it was at that time. But later on, when I was an adult, because I took many years off of cannabis, like at that time, I tried it a few times as a teenager, but wasn't a real consumer until my mid 20s, almost late 20s. And at that point, I wasn't feeling confident. I was like, I have all these skills, I have all this desire, and I think I should be able to do something with it, but nothing's working. I don't know where to go. I don't know how to start this like career. I knew I wanted to be different. I didn't fit in the corporate world. So I was like, can't do that. So, but what do I do? And cannabis was super helpful in giving me the confidence to just take that next step in my career, in my evolution, and just be like, it's okay. You know what? Every day is a new day. I would come home at the end of the day and I would smoke a joint and I'd be like, okay, whatever I did today, it was what I did, and now tomorrow's something else. So it was really helpful in my professional life, but also just my self-worth and self-esteem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to say that cannabis is for everybody and cannabis is like a miracle. I'm not trying to say anything like that. I will say that to those who are passionate about it, cannabis feels magical.
Mm.
It may not be magical, but it feels magical. And this is especially important, I feel, as I'm aging, like, my cannabis use has changed over the years. I just don't want anybody thinking like, wow, 1977, I smoked my first joint, and then like, man, my life was perfect. Oh no. Oh no, no, no. Because, I still got me. And I'm still broken and I still have issues and I have all this learned behavior. And so I had to actually, pursue something better to be better.
Yeah.
Right. I had to make that commitment to myself to try to be the best I could be. Mm-hmm. And so that I could experience and live in joy and gratitude. Mm. Those all sound very flowery and all that kind of stuff, and maybe a little bit altruistic, but that's what I was looking for. I was looking for to be happy. I just wanted to be freaking happy in my life, right? If I got to be here and I don't want to just take up space, I want to love who I am and my life. Mm-hmm. And so, it's funny that you say that about being cool. I don't think I was trying to be cool, but when I was young and in school, I was often, where I lived on Vancouver Island, I was often the only Black girl there in my school, and always the only one in my class. Mm. So I lived in a place where there was a lot of Caucasian people, and there was a lot of First Nations people, and there was a lot of angst in between them. Mm. And so I had a lot of troubles. My mother was very mentally ill, and I definitely did not help with that because I didn't understand it, of course. And at that time, even like hardly anybody else understood it. And so, the approach to mental health then, much like it is still in some ways, was to medicate people. Mm-hmm. And so my mother became a prescription drug addict. Mm. And so, that combination is really heartbreaking. Yeah. And so, when I think about my mother, I think about someone, who suffered for her whole life. Life to her was suffering. And I just didn't want that for myself. Like, I may as well just like slip trigger warning. I may as well slip my wrist right now and get it over with. That was my attitude. Mm-hmm. And, I knew people who had, committed suicide and stuff because life was just too much for them.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, that was always a feasible, alternative.
Yeah.
Right? But, the thing is that what I love that cannabis did for me over those years where I was trying to find my way, trying to explore other tools to help, like I had a real attitude problem. I know you find that so hard to believe.
I do, because you have a great attitude. So it speaks to the growth.
Honestly,
maybe?
I still have, I know, right? I still have my report cards. And they talk about my attitude and why I got kicked out of school. And so, I told you I was angry, right? Mm-hmm. And so I just kind of got to this place where I just like didn't care. And I just was completely rebellious and completely like that FU attitude that we often develop.
Yeah.
Now, yes, cannabis really helped me. It helped keep me calm. It helped me sometimes express those emotions that I had inside that I didn't know how else to express, except in anger, except in violence, except in, crying,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I spent a lot of time with a wet face.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is, you know, I just really wanted it. You know, I was really challenged with like, what could my life be? What could I be? Could I be the kind of person that like enjoys their life, like wakes up in the morning excited, like for what the day might bring, rather than waking up? Because I did this a lot, and I'm sure that you can relate to this, because I'm sure everybody does this. Like, you know, you just like you're having this sleep, just like peaceful, hopefully, and then you know you realize that you're conscious, and you're like, I got to do this again, another day. I gotta face this shit. So, you know, like when you're really struggling, that's how it feels. And some days, the best I could do was to just like, if I was lucky enough to have some cannabis, to have a couple puffs and just like,
Yeah.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the reasons why cannabis is really good for working through trauma and stuff like that, is because cannabis itself brings with it, part of its therapeutic value, it brings with it that kind of buffer, right? Just a little bit of buffering so that, you know, you can look at things, think about things, but they're not like sharp and jagged and cutting you to bits. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Have you ever experienced that?
Yes, I have. And it reminds me of this story that I really want to tell.
Tell me.
And that is when
Us.
I was in journalism school in Concordia University, shout out Concordia. And my group of our teammates, we were doing a short documentary on cannabis medicine as medicine. Okay. And it actually started because we were doing it on PTSD.
Okay.
And then what we saw when we were interviewing former Canadian Forces soldiers who had fought in Afghanistan, who had been peacekeepers all over the world, right? So we got to meet a bunch of veterans, and all were struggling with some form of PTSD of various kinds, and some were more, you know, challenged than others. And we met one soldier who had very severe PTSD. A former soldier, and he had very, very severe PTSD. We went to his house, and on the table, he lined us all the pharmaceutical medicines that he would have to take in order just to function in the world. He was just like, I need all of these just to get out of bed and face life because of the trauma and the scarring on the inside that he had felt, and the trauma and how it all worked out, right? And then he said, okay, now if I use cannabis, and he showed us a little square of one corner of the table. He's like, I have a spray, I have I have my little capsules, and I have my, I think he had a vaporizer or something. So just a small little setup. And for me, I was blown away because I grew up with cannabis being like fun, like party, like let's get high, let's this and that. And so that was the first time I was like struck by like, whoa, this is a really potent medicine, and people are being helped to be able just to face the world in a way that they wouldn't. And maybe unfortunately, that's another community where suicide is high, right? Because people just can't face some of these traumas alone. And I think that, you know, of course, everyone should feel that they're not alone. But unfortunately, a lot of us still feel we are.
For sure. Because, you know, you got to find those people in those spaces that are safe and non-judgmental. And so, you know, I really hear what you're saying, because, you know, when I'm using cannabis, like for all that time, then I'm just like coping mechanism, you know, okay, cool. I got a chill pill. I got something that can help me. Like if I'm feeling a little like overwhelmed or stressed or scared or angry or whatever the case may be. But really, it was about feeling good. And so like that kind of party approach is more than just like, let's get wasted. It's about feeling good. Why do we party? We want to feel good. We want to have some fun, because maybe life is a fucking so hard. Whoops, I should bleep.
You can no. This is like plus. This is adult entertainment.
Oh, adult entertainment. I love it. I love it. We're just like OnlyFans, except we're
Without,
not.
Yeah, just the swearing.
All right. So and so like sometimes that's all we feel like we want from it. We're not really sure, about other things. We just know we just want to feel good. And so for me, I was a consumer for like 20 years. And then suddenly I got really sick. I literally woke up one day with a unimaginable pain in my head that was like somebody had an ice pick and they were just like sticking it in my left eye.
Oh my gosh.
And I thought, of course, my jump, I was terrified. And I thought, oh my God, would I have a brain tumor or something? But it turns out I have this condition called chronic cluster headaches. And so, a lot of people deal with migraines. So you understand when I'm talking about head pain, and I'm talking about like severe head pain. So it feels not like a headache, even though it's called that, which is like really stupid because it's like makes it sound like so innocent.
Right.
But it's like it feels like an attack on my brain. And it's so painful, it's completely debilitating. And so it changed the course of my life.
Yeah.
And for the first time, that was also the first time that I ever experienced pharmaceutical medication. Because I was always afraid of it, right? Like, watching my poor mother, and others. And so, I was scared to take an aspirin, for God's sake. So, and I'm really grateful that I had that experience because I got to understand what those pharmaceuticals feel like, the effect. And I just want to talk about that for a second.
Yeah,
right?
Please.
Because I'm not trying to diss pharmaceutical medicines at all. There are some life-saving things that are amazing, how much we've progressed. Oh my God.
100%.
And absolutely. And I don't see cannabis use and pharmaceutical Western medicine, I don't see it as being either or. I use the word and in my approach to things.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
there's room for things. And so, but the pharmaceutical medicines, sometimes they don't work as effectively. And a lot of times you can feel like dampened. Like your spirit feels a little bit dampened. You feel like a little bit slow. Maybe you don't quite feel yourself. And, it's not as extreme as having, something like surgery or something. What's that called? Not a lobotomy.
Lobotomy.
No, not that one. The other one. Anyways, I can't remember. But anyways, it's not as serious as that, but it's still like really serious.
Yeah.
It still feels, you don't feel like you're functioning.
Yeah, like I know people who, family members and who have taken pharmaceuticals, and most people I know have at some point. But yeah, like the feedback that one of my family relatives, like it just didn't feel, he felt like life got turned down. Like he was like a very active person, and then he felt like he couldn't be his full expressive self. I don't know if that resonates to your experience.
No, completely. And many people, especially when they're taking pharmaceutical medications for mental health issues, they might not be suffering, in one way, but they might be suffering in another way, right? Just by feeling their spirit compromised. And then, of course, the most typical thing is the side effects from medication, the physical side effects, I take a medication that creates incredible nausea if I don't have exactly the right amount of food to take it with. And so, like, just things like that, constipations and I know, it's not a very pretty subject.
We're gonna break it down here, people. We're gonna keep it real. This is it. Look, life is too complicated. The world is too messed up for us to dance around terms like constipation. You get stuck up, you can't go.
And this is a common side effect of medications.
Yeah.
So anyhow, I appreciate that cannabis has very few contraindications with pharmaceutical medications. It works very well with many things. And when you are approaching it and you do take pharmaceutical medications, just having that information in mind that, you are going to have to explore with that. Like, you don't stop using that to start using cannabis. That's not the best idea.
Well, no, I think I've heard it like described in, I've done some research recently in like brain cancer and how, from a naturopathic point of view. So I was doing just some reading about that for a family member who had, who had been diagnosed. And what I discovered was that, like, there is, even inside of traditional medicine, there's this thing called standard care and non-standard care, and everyone realizes that these things go together now. So I think, even though, like, obviously there's a lot wrong with the world and the healthcare system and everything, there is at least cannabis and other other tools, other non-traditional tools are being more, maybe not fast enough, but they are being more welcomed into that, like, traditional medicine type environment, right? Like, and I think that the evidence is just too hard to ignore. Go out, kids, and Google like what cannabis can be used for, how can it help people in different ailments, and there's just, every day we're adding to that list.
And that's what happened to me. So, I'm experienced with cannabis, a 20-year consumer, right? And then I get sick and I am exposed to pharmaceutical medications. And I have to add that what do you think the first thought that occurred to me is? The first thought that occurred to me when I was diagnosed with this, after decades of shame, stigmas, and stereotypes, was it my cannabis use that created this condition?
Right.
That caused this to happen?
Right.
Did it make me sick? Were they right? Was it going to create some problems for me in the future? And it scared me. I'll be honest, it scared me. So I stopped. I stopped using cannabis. I let them give me these pharmaceutical medications, and I was in the process of looking for a cocktail of medicines that would control my condition and allow me to carry on in my career, which was at sea. I worked on the cruise ships.
And it's like the most painful. I've read about the cluster headaches, and it's like considered one of the most painful diseases that we have on the planet for humans.
They actually, healthcare professionals have actually, I don't know if they still do this, but they used to refer to them as suicide headaches.
Oh my gosh.
Like, the pain was so bad that was an option.
Yeah.
And when you're going through it, that's how you feel. Like, wow, I'll just do anything to stop this.
Wow, that's so intense.
So anyhow, thankfully, I found something that kind of was helping to control it, finally, like an amount of medicine. And I had a doctor tell me to maybe, she said, you smoke pot? Oh, yeah. I'm like, yeah.
Maybe.
I did, but I haven't for a while.
Right. Sometimes, whenever.
And
maybe.
She suggested to me, her name was Dr. King. Shout out to Dr. King. She suggested to me, well, why don't you look at cannabis and see if it can help you with, like, the anxiety? Because what was happening was those attacks often come when you're sleeping. So you can't really prepare for them.
Right.
And the other thing that happens is that your body automatically wants to become an insomniac, right? Because you're scared to go to sleep. Because it might happen while you're sleeping.
Right.
So, and the anxiety around that, and the anxiety around there being no triggers, like there being no warning. I've had attacks where I've been at a bus stop, and I was waiting for a bus, and I had an attack so bad, and somebody came and took my bag.
No
They
way.
robbed me while I was having one of these
Well,
attacks.
That's not classy. Come on, people. Who taught you?
Really?
Who raised you?
So, so I listened to what she said, and I thought, ooh, wouldn't that be cool? Right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be cool if it actually helped me? And so I began to approach it with that in mind. Okay, like, I'm scared to go to sleep, so let me have a puff or two, and that'll make me nice and relaxed and drowsy, and then I'll fall asleep, and if it happens, it happens. And it got to that experimentation again because we hear the stories, right? We heard the stories about the cancer patients and people with Alzheimer's who found like some slowing down of the progression of their
Yeah.
illness,
Yeah.
sometimes tumors disappearing. Oh my
Yeah.
God. And we hear that as being,
Results not typical.
right? and so, I was curious, and that opened up a whole new level of understanding of my relationship with Mary Jane.
Beautiful.
And
Wow.
so I'm so grateful for that. And that's why I feel like confident. I don't care what happens tomorrow. We've never had a fatality directly associated with cannabis.
Check the facts,
tomorrow,
kids. It's on Google.
Tomorrow, if 100 people or 1,000 people died suddenly after using cannabis, my first question would be like, what did they do to the cannabis? because in my own experience, I'm trying to express the confidence that I have in my own experience, knowing Mary Jane the way that I do.
Yeah.
And doing that, it helps your a symbiotic relationship moving forward. It's not doing it for you. You still got to do the work.
Yeah.
Like there's just no getting away from it. But the thing is, if you want to do the work, if you want to look, explore that inner landscape and heal from those past traumas and current traumas, because listen, we're being inundated with now everything in real life and the internet, and it's wonderful, yes, but we're being inundated and traumatized on the daily here by events around the world, never mind what's happening to our families and loved ones and ourselves. And listen, I'm at that end of Generation X or the beginning of Generation X, so like I'm heading towards my 60s now, and I'm telling you, like, aging is challenging. I mean, it's way better than the alternative, but it's challenging. And I can't even be more grateful to Mary Jane for the things that come as a result of injury just in life, or things that happen as your body ages.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel you.
Yeah.
I feel you. I think that I want you to talk a little bit more about where we're going next, because this podcast, this partnership, and everything that we're co-creating is, I think it's for people, fundamentally, right? It's for other people. It's for you people, you guys out there, all of you, because, and I'll tell you why this is for you. We are two people, and we're two friends who often hang out together, and we often smoke weed together and have a great time. And I'm sure you may have felt this at different parts of your life, like our relationship together. Like, this would be amazing if we got this on camera and shared it with people, because I think between the two of us, we've generated, what did you say? How many years of?
Like 75 years of lived experience.
75 years of lived experience.
Between the two of us.
Yes.
And you got your own, right?
Yeah, and we're here to do that. So like, tell us more about where we're going and maybe some of the things that people can expect from this podcast going forward.
Well, you know what? Nick and I sat down, and we over the phone, and we sat down and we thought about, we had like a brainstorming session on all of the tools that we utilize for our wellness and self-care. And of course, cannabis is one of them. And so it's probably the first one of what we're talking about here. But the thing is, we have found many things that pair very well with Mary Jane.
Yes.
Very complementary. And so we narrowed them down to our top 10. Okay. Yes. So the next few episodes, we're going to break them down. We're going to talk about each of those 10 things. They go everything from meditation and movement to talking about reframing, sexuality. Yeah, we're going to go there.
We're going there. We are.
And, just pretty much all of these things. What's some more that was on our list?
Yeah.
The top 10.
To me, like it's where we're going to a place where we're going to be sharing the tools that work for us.
Exactly.
And each episode is going to be based on one of these ideas or modalities. But each episode, we're going to hang out together. We're going to hang out with you. In general, these episodes are meant to share with you the things that we've been sharing with each other. And over the last, we've known each other for almost 5 years, which is amazing. And over those 5 years, I think one of the common things that both of us have talked about is that we both felt such joy and happiness about our lives, and we were so excited to be alive and to be here at this time, and so grateful for the plant and Mary Jane and all of the opportunities that have come because of her. And at the same time, we feel that the world is struggling and it's heavy out there. It's really, really, really tough out there. I've never experienced anything like this. I couldn't even imagine it could get this crazy and this chaotic. Right. And just we're talking about the serious things. However, this is where this beautiful plant comes in, because she can help us not take it all so seriously and not take it all at once. So these episodes are a break. We want them to be a refuge, a sanctuary for you from the world that will equip you and strengthen you to get back out there, because we need each and every one of us, no matter where we are, to be supporting this new earth, this new way. Like, we got to get out some of the old stuff and we got to bring in some new stuff, and we need everybody for that. So this is my intention, is like to make sure that people have the tools that can help them guide themselves through these on their own. We are not trying to be teachers or anything like that. We're literally just saying, hey, this is what's working for us. If it works for you, cool. What also works for you, tell us so we can learn too. And that's about what we're creating as well, is a community of people, whether here on Patreon or in real life, which is allowed now. So that's great.
Yeah. And the thing about it is that however we're doing it, if we're seeking healing, isn't fun healing the best kind of healing? Like if you gotta do it, right?
Yes.
Isn't it best to have it be enjoyable?
I mean, don't they say that laughter is the best medicine?
Exactly. So, you might watch our podcast and you might just be like, oh, these two are crazy. I'll just have a session, whatever, right? Laugh at these two fools on the screen. But you know what? If you're looking to really make the most of your cannabis use, if you're looking to really live, I know these are cliche terms or tripes that they
tell
put
us,
out
Steve.
there,
preach.
Like, honestly, if you want to be your best self, be someone who you're proud of, someone that you really are your own best friend, like you're the person that you want to hang with, right? You trust yourself, you feel in control of the things that you can be in control of, and the things that you can't be in control of, you're okay at peace with that, to just let go and just whatever, still love your life. So I feel like consumers, cannabis enthusiasts over the years have just gotten this super bad rap. We're attacked with shame, we're attacked with stigma and stereotypes, we're treated like second-class citizens often. We're looked down upon in terms of our personal choices, lifestyle choices.
Yeah, seriously, it's not easy out there.
What I'm trying to say is, I hope that you are at a point where, no matter what is being said out there, no matter what's happening out there, you are happy with who you are. And I just wanted you to know that you're not alone. You're not alone. We're there too. That's what we're striving for. So, we share some of our experiences, and our tools and the things, and we want to hear from you as well. We want to hear what's working for you.
Yeah.
And we've got lots of really cool topics to talk about.
Yes.
As well as doing some, live things for our Patreon members. We want to really talk with you, not just at you.
100%.
So we're going to ask, at the end of each episode, we're going to have a topic. We're going to show you what we're talking about. Hopefully, we might have some examples, right? And we're going to ask you some questions.
Yeah.
And then you can decide for yourself if you want to play along. you want to answer those questions for yourself, and then you can also talk about them in the on the Patreon.
Yeah, exactly.
So
we're both really proud to be part of the Canadian legal cannabis industry. Legal. They did one thing right. You can't blame them for every. Governments. We always have something bad to say, but they passed that thing. It's done. Can't take it back now. And so we're very proud to be, part of that industry. At the same time, I think I can speak for myself only, but that it's an international perspective that we take, and we are very much want to engage with people all over the world, because cannabis is like a sweeping tides, almost inevitable. Maybe it is, and it's happening all over the world in different ways and different. And that's the beautiful thing about this plant. It is so different and diverse wherever you are, whoever you are. It can have a completely, different or divergent effect. So I think that's something that we want to make sure that everyone feels welcome here.
Yeah.
And we also want to make sure that people who may be either skeptical or curious about cannabis, but are not really interested for themselves, we also want to make you feel like you better understand. Maybe you have a relative or a friend or a partner who's really into cannabis and you want to better understand their experience. This is a space for you as well. Like it's an open space, and we can't wait to be in everyone's lives and to meet you. And I can't wait for more and more people to, let's be honest, Dee, you've got the goods in this area, and I cannot wait for more.
Got the goods.
You've got the goods. I feel like we're doing like a heist, you got the goods. I'll be the wheelman. And so, yeah, like this is just a great opportunity for people to better understand DVIBZ. And, obviously I am so proud to be part of DVIBZ, and, that's been a huge part of my life over the last 5 years. So I can't wait to share some of that juice with other people, because it's magic.
Awesome. Well, listen, if you're interested in learning more about therapeutic cannabis use, you come to the right place. I think we're going to call this a podcast "Thrivin With DVIBZ," because you don't need to white knuckle your way through life. You don't need to white knuckle your way through life. We can coast. We can coast with DVIBZ, and we can thrive. We can live our best lives, be our best selves, and then have our most joy.
You heard it.
So I hope you'll come back again and see us. All right.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Yeah.